Hey, guys.
Hey,
ROMEOs.
How's it going?
It's going. How are you guys doing?
Wonderful.
Very good.
Always good to be with you guys.
Here in?
Romeo headquarters.
There we go.
Exactly.
World headquarters.
Whoa.
Correct.
World headquarters.
Correct.
Our brand is booming.
Thank
Naren.
God.
Naren.
Yes.
What's in there?
You don't want to know.
Okay.
It's
I asked, so I did want to know, but he want you
coffee,
don't want to
and
tell.
Jameson.
What?
Coffee and Jameson? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Cheers.
That's U.S.
Top of the morning to you.
Yeah.
No, it's Irish.
That's Irish.
Yes. Top of the morning to you.
So, guys, I have a suggestion for today's discussion.
Let's hear it.
All right. So, America's always been center stage, but the winds seem to be shifting. And I'm wondering whether the world is now looking at America differently. And the question I have for you today is, America, friend or foe?
Yeah.
That's good.
We are at the crossroads, my
Yes.
friends. We are at the
Yeah.
crossroads.
And in the
Yeah.
crosshairs.
And in the crosshairs
Yeah.
All right.
for the good people up north.
So, Aki,
Us.
why don't you get us started with respect to the crossroads?
Well, I mean, absolutely. We're seeing right now in America that we've never seen before internationally. I mean, after the Second World War, America was the undisputed leader of the free world, the undisputed major economic driver of the world's economy, a nation that built like a tremendous network of alliances. No other power comes close to America in terms of the alliances that they build, and in terms of the amount of investment and blood and treasure to rebuild Europe after the Second World War and be able to create one of the world's most successful economic blocks. All of our institutions in terms of international finance, in terms of international development,
Aid.
NATO. Peace, you name it. America was
Leader.
the driver and the leader of the successful, peaceful, prosperous Western world that we've benefited from since the Second World War.
Wow. You said was. And now?
Now I think that we're seeing some real serious backsliding, and I'm being very diplomatic.
Don't be.
Well,
We're not here to be diplomatic.
okay. I mean,
what the fuck's going on?
what the fuck is going on exactly? What's happening is that we see another side. This is the side that this always existed in the United States psyche. This isolationism. We let's take care of ourselves. The rest of the world is not our business. We saw that they didn't want to get involved in the Second World War.
That was a fraction of the population that
Well,
thought
now
that way.
but
No, not always.
not always. I mean, but let us not forget that probably if it wasn't for Pearl Harbor, the United States, who knows if it would have even gotten involved in the Second World War and how that would have changed the course of history. So we're seeing that seed was always there. Now what's happened is it's come to the forefront, and it's it's all full backward nationalist extremist manifestation.
Wow.
So I'm listening to you and I'm asking myself, have things really changed as drastically as we perceive them to have changed? Or really the question we should be asking ourselves is, what was America's motivation all along for the involvement it had in various global activities, whether it was the Second World War or other events which have followed since? Any thoughts on that?
Well, sure. I mean, America's motivation. Let's not forget, we're talking about the Cold War. We're talking about a very backward and dangerous empire that the Soviet Union and Russia, where Stalin and after the World
Yeah, but they
War
were
II.
defeated at a certain point when the wall fell.
But after right after the Second World War, one of the main priorities for the free world was to keep Stalin and the Soviet Union in check
and to rebuild
And
Europe.
so the United States very intelligently recognized that you do that on two levels. You do that on a military security level, but you also do it on an economic level.
So I think you hit on something really, really strong earlier about the U.S. Doing things that were in its best interest. And I hadn't thought about it until you said it. And I kind of really agree with the fact that all of the things that the U.S. has done, arguably up until now, have always been in its best interest anyway. And I think that's where Pat was getting at.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I
exactly.
hadn't thought about that until you said it. And I kind of violently agree with you that even though it seemed altruistic and it seemed that they were building, alliances for the globe and for the world and NATO and all of that, I think underlying in all of this is, hey, is this good for me or not?
It's always been self-serving.
Exactly.
Always.
It's just that in certain periods of history,
Yeah, I hadn't thought of it that way.
in certain periods of history, it just so happened that America's stance or position or actions also had benefits
yeah.
Yeah.
for most of Western civilization.
And
Exactly.
minding your own business, it's always a good policy. You look at Vietnam, Iraq, Afghanistan, all went wrong.
I know, but on balance, if you want to be, if you claim to be the leader, and this is it's in your interest as a capitalist society, as a very successful economic powerhouse, the more markets you control, that is in your interest. So you can't. So security and the economy, in terms of international affairs, they go hand in hand.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, I think there's also a limit to that. Because you
Sure.
expose
Absolutely.
yourself.
Absolutely.
We're seeing that now. I mean,
Exactly.
the
You expose yourself for situations that are beyond your control.
well, the thing that, okay, so if the U.S. had to do things that were not considered cowboyish for the world, meaning,
Exactly.
being positive, they did it covertly with the CIA, with toppling of governments and all of the other stuff that we, I'm sure, don't know half of.
Yeah, the list is endless. There's a
Exactly.
huge list.
So again, it gets to the foundational thing of, hey, what's good for me, and how do I do this stuff? And if it looks like it's good for the world, then let's make this overtly. And if it doesn't look like it's good for the world, and we're only doing it for ourselves, let's do it covertly.
Well, but those double standards or that hypocrisy
Yeah.
has always been there,
Agreed.
right? Because America staunchly defends its rights as a country, as a nation, the rights of its citizens, but does not have the same regard for foreign nations or the people who reside in those foreign nations.
Absolutely.
So some of those,
And we're seeing that
some of
right
those
now.
covert operations that you're discussing or describing have everything to do with America trying to project its ideology and its values and its beliefs on other countries, as opposed to letting them be. Let the people in those countries decide what's appropriate, what's acceptable, what's not, right?
Yeah, but I think it all came down to money, because if you can get them to be democratic and trade and capitalist, then you can trade with them and you can make money off of them at a certain point.
Nothing wrong with that.
economic interests, well, I'm not so sure, because economic interests and military power being driving forces for a country's stance, if you will, are nothing new, right? You go back to in history to the beginning of time, and it's existed.
Yeah, what's good for me is good for me, and
Yeah.
that's all I give a shit about.
But arguably, where the Americans got it right in the past was that the way they set it up, everybody had a stake. They were the power, the superpower, but all the allies also had a stake in what they were proposing. So they had a stake in terms of their own development, and they had opportunities to develop. So if you look at Europe after the Second World War, I mean, if you compare Western Europe under American leadership compared to Eastern Europe under the Soviet Union, well, Western Europe, my God,
Flourished, of course. Yeah.
flourished, and that was win-win for the Americans.
Absolutely.
Whereas in the past,
So wait a second. They flourished, but in a way that would ensure that they would not flourish to the point of overtaking America as an economic power.
Yeah, agreed. But that's because of the politics of Europe and the socialist tendencies of Europe are less company friendly and less enterprise friendly, I would say.
Exactly.
yeah.
That would be my and I'm sure the U.S. is very happy with that, because then they have economic might and leadership. I don't think they were happy when the euro got announced, because they were afraid that their U.S. dollar would now have a viable competitor, for example. So anything that threatens the strength, viability, and growth of the U.S. pisses the U.S. off, which is normal. I would.
It's an overreaction.
It's a normal reaction, exactly.
Right.
So
It's a normal reaction for individuals that are insecure.
correct, and every individual is insecure to a point, especially if you're a politician.
Not so sure.
Yeah. I think what was really different and unique about the so-called American Empire, if you can put it that way, was that ancient, not ancient, but historically empires, the way they were set up economically is you have, the mother country and all the colonies and all the occupied countries. Those economies were always feeding to the mother country.
Yes.
Whereas the American model was more nuanced. It was where we allowed and we supported homegrown capitalist open market economies.
Yeah.
We still benefited tremendously.
Well, the U.S. companies benefited from the
Correct, but
ownership
that's
doing business in these countries.
But I would argue that was the brilliance of the American strategy, because they did it that way. But of course,
and it helped increase the GDPs of these countries as well.
Absolutely, absolutely.
To your point earlier, it helps spread out the wealth.
And at some point, I don't think the Americans stood in the way of the European Union becoming, as big as it could possibly can be, because maybe they were smart enough to realize, because of what you mentioned, some of the political movements in that European Union were probably going to hold them back. They were not going to be, as super capitalist as the United States. So that would hold them back a little bit. So they played on that as well, which is fine.
Yeah, yeah. But now let's get back to America, friend or foe. So America has always been America first.
Yeah.
But now it's at a different level where it's overtly, hey, I'm going to screw everyone else because I want all of the pie. I don't want to give you any crumbs.
Right.
That's what it seems like now. And
exactly.
Where is that going to lead?
So I would stop you there, and I would say that sentiment is certainly true for countries that were closely aligned with America previously.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But if you're sitting in Putin's chair today,
you're laughing.
You're looking at this whole
Celebrate.
question of friend or foe very differently, and not to suggest that they're going to become fast friends, but he has much to gain under the current American regime versus those that preceded it.
Well, I think Trump just wants to weaken Europe because Europe is a
I don't
competitor.
No.
In my heart, that's what I.
No,
you don't think that?
No, not at all.
Listen, what happens? I mean, who gains from a weaker Europe?
Look at the UK and Italy. They're in agreement with most of what Trump is doing. I mean, look at Giorgia Meloni. They're friends.
But
the UK are friends.
Yeah, but this is
that's politicians versus people.
I don't agree with you.
But the tariff announcements, the tariffs that have just announced against the European Union, Italy's not very amused.
Well,
no.
For me, again, I think in Trump's mind, if Russia starts becoming a specter in Europe and in that continent, then it weakens Europe. Europe now has to spend more of their GDP on defense. It means less money for other things. It's going to mean less economic strength and growth for them versus the U.S.
Well, but that to me says that they were either foolish or naive for not investing to the degree they should have previously.
Absolutely. It's like Canada. Canada doesn't spend nearly as much as it should on its military, for sure. And we've got three oceans to protect around us, so to speak, right? Or we've got a lot of things that we need to do as a country, and we haven't. And the U.S., so that's one part where I actually agree with Donald Trump, is the fact that NATO countries have not been putting their fair share into defense, and they've been lulled into a false sense of security because the U.S. has spent so much on defending the world. And on that one particular point, I happen to agree with you.
Canada's been freeloading.
Well, hold on a second before we get to that. But to your point, absolutely. I mean, for sure, on defense. But by the same token, that is in the United States' interest. Being the world superpower means, having like a supreme military capability.
Correct.
So you want to be head and shoulders above everybody else.
Yeah, but at the same time, if your military is the only one that's going to be protecting the entire globe, you're being put in a position where you're spending more of your GDP and more of your money on this. Now, the flip side of that argument is if everyone else's GDP spend on defense increases, the people who benefit the most is the U.S. because they're the largest arms manufacturer. So, it's win-win for the U.S. in this whole cycle. And to me, that's part of that's a psychology or part of what Trump is doing where I can't disagree with it. Now there's a lot of other shitty things that he's doing with the tariffs and so on that are punitive for everybody, But on the defense side, man,
There's also another very important factor. It's the military-industrial complex in the States. It's a huge part of their economy.
that's what I said.
That
yeah.
is such a profitable sector.
Absolutely.
So yes, nobody in the United States, right? Those business interests are not complaining about the high level of military expenditures. They're not worried about how much the Europeans are spending on defense. It's a real it's a cash cow.
But
for
actually,
them.
wouldn't it be even more beneficial for them
Exactly.
if the European countries and Canada
Yes.
would have spent to
Lit-
the degree that they had previously committed
And the
to?
2%.
Yeah.
It's 2%.
No,
right?
it's 2%, and no, it should be even higher. But yeah, let's get to 2%.
Okay,
No,
okay,
totally. But all I'm saying is I'm just putting out there that there's also a great self-interest
Oh,
for this
absolutely.
military situation.
That's why I said it's a win-win.
Yeah.
It's absolutely a
Yeah.
win-win. And to me, I can't fault that part of what he's doing. Now, when it comes to tariffs, though, so we said, U.S. friend or foe. When it comes to the idea somehow that tariffs are beneficial. Now, okay, from a longer term perspective, putting a tariff on everything coming into your country is going to start onshoring manufacturing, but that's going to take months and years. You don't build factories in 6 months. Especially, you don't build a steel smelting facility that you've closed in Bethlehem, in Allentown, and so on in Pennsylvania that's been closed for years. You don't, and that's been turned into condos. You don't all of a sudden open it up in 6 months, right? So these things are going to take time for industries to expand and grow and manufacturing to be onboarded. And by the way, the people who are going to take those jobs, you got 4% unemployment in the U.S. Who's going to take those jobs?
You have full employment.
And how much are you going to now pay these people to take these jobs? And what's going to happen to the cost of the output of onshored manufacturing versus how much it would have cost to bring them in from a different country? That's where globalization started, to lower costs of everything. Everyone's used to cheap shit. Everyone buys cheap shit every day with aluminum and steel products and everything else delivered to your home by Amazon. What's going to happen when everything is 25, 30, 40% more expensive?
Naren, the questions you're raising and the points you're making, the arguments you're putting forth are pertinent if you accept that the motivation behind the moves is really for America to bring back all these industries.
That's what Trump's been saying.
But do you believe that essentially conveys the true motivation for the tariffs or behind the tariffs? I don't think it's that simple. I really don't.
So what do you think is the ulterior motive beyond that?
I think that there are a number of reasons. Where Europe is concerned, a lot of it has to do with the fact that, again, rightfully, America is now pointing out that Europe has imposed tariffs on certain American goods that really it's become unviable for them to export them to Europe because they can't achieve a competitive price point. So automobiles would be a good example, right? American-made automobiles cannot be exported cost-effectively to European countries.
Okay, so why don't the Americans do the same thing the Europeans did, which is to open American plants in Europe? Because that's what Volkswagen and
Ford
and
their hand has been forced. And the other argument is that you have a market in America that has, and economically and otherwise, has broad justification for those companies to do so, whereas American car manufacturers have not seen the economic benefits of doing so.
But American car manufacturers have
Right,
plants.
that's one example. But I'm saying the reasons for imposing tariffs, and we see the timeframes are also different with respect to how tariffs are being implemented. So I think Europe is more calculated, and the motivation for imposing tariffs is different than, say, some of the tariffs that have been announced with respect to Mexico and Canada.
So
right, and there the argument isn't so much that we want to onshore; it's the fact that supposedly fentanyl has become a major issue.
That's bullshit.
Well, exactly. So my point is, I don't think there's a whole lot of transparency there. The fact of the matter is that if you weaken the Canadian economy, which tariffs are certainly going to accomplish, then you cause more Canadians to perhaps seriously consider the possibility of joining or becoming part of the United States.
He doesn't understand Canadians.
No.
He doesn't understand much. That isn't the point. I'm talking about what is the motivation.
Yeah.
But Pat,
What is the motivation?
You think that's what it is?
Right? What is the motivation for treating Ukraine the way they do?
right? But on the tariffs,
To weaken Europe.
right? Well, I have a theory about that.
That's my theory.
I have a theory about that. Let me just to your point, Pat, about the tariffs. He's a monopolist. He wants monopolies. He wants to be. He's a New York City real estate developer. So his instincts are dominate the market. Everybody, you should be the leading player. End of story. Everybody else, they're there at your at your behest. So he's a monopolist. That's number one. Number two, I mean, it's really what I talked earlier about. The genius of the so-called American empire. Which was, build, a big economic pie that will benefit everybody. He doesn't understand that at all. He believes, the only success, the only true metric of economic success is the United States being the central power, and everybody else feeds into the American economy. So everybody else, they're almost de facto colonies. They're economic colonies. So it's going back, harking back to the old empires of the 18th century.
Aki,
No, I think it's very
there's-
different.
There's nothing
the model is
wrong-
very different.
Yeah, but Aki, there's nothing wrong with the idea of what you just said. There's nothing wrong with someone in the U.S. saying, "Hey, I want to be number one, and I want everyone to kiss my ass."
Okay, but I'll tell you what's wrong.
Hang on.
Yeah.
So the mentality isn't the issue. To me, it's how he's going about trying to get that to happen, which is the issue. Because I think the nuance underneath all of this is what's escaping him. Because if you go down the path that he's going, yes, eventually you're going to onshore manufacturing. Yes, you're going to be punitive to certain countries because you want them to give you something that they have that you want. Ukrainian minerals, Canada,
Canadian minerals and natural resources,
and all
more
of
broadly
that.
speaking.
Yes, and all of that, right? Mexico to stop migrants coming up and being more forceful with their southern border on their side, and so on, right? So all of these things, he wants something out of it, and he's using it as a stick, as a punitive measure. The nuance that I don't think he's getting is what's going to happen to inflation in his own country. What's going to happen with
Productivity.
Let's leave productivity aside because I don't agree with that one. But in any case, inflation for sure is going to skyrocket in his own country. And he doesn't. And look what's happening in the markets recently, with the markets tanking as they are, because people are seeing that there's going to be a recession coming. And I think within the next 6 months, we're going to see that a recession has happened in the U.S. because of his policies. The reason he's doing it, I can't argue with. He's being America first. But he's the president of America. Yes, he should be doing that.
I don't think that tells the whole story.
Okay.
I don't disagree that his position is America first. But part of the mindset is also Trump first. So as much as this is about America,
I'm trying to put that part aside.
but it's an important component.
Yeah, okay. The cryptocurrency shit, the stuff that the grafting shit that he grifting, I should say.
It starts with his own ambitions. It starts with his own hunger for power and authority.
Okay.
And
Okay.
he leverages that and puts forth an argument that places America first.
Yes. Okay.
But again, it's back to hypocrisy.
and egotism on his side. That's fine.
100%.
I don't mind that.
But
To me, that's okay.
But here's the kicker in all this. This is a very basic capitalist principle, right? Competition. What he's doing is, and he doesn't understand this. We've had these empires in the past. We've had these situations. How do empires fail? Because eventually, they grow too big, too unproductive. They when you don't have competition and all your economy is hiding behind tariff walls, that economy becomes much, much less competitive, much, much less innovative, and much, much less efficient.
I don't
So
agree.
I hope.
I
So
don't
I
agree.
hope.
I don't
So I
agree.
hope. I hope the message here is what he's not seeing is that by building these tariff walls, and it'll be like Island America.
Yeah, but Aki, you're talking a generation or two in the future because nothing's going to happen overnight.
No.
So people aren't going to get stupid overnight. The U.S., the ability of U.S. Universities to churn out the leading edge quantum technologies and silicon and so on isn't going to change overnight.
Perhaps.
So what's going to happen is this is 4 years of Trump. Afterwards, when people are going to be looking at the inflation that's going to happen in the next 6 months to a year, when the midterms come, all the Congress is going to flip to Democrats, and he's not going to be able to do a freaking thing after that. That's what, to me. That's right. To me, that's the road that I see.
You're right.
So we shouldn't.
Be careful with that. So I don't disagree with the argument. However, I think that under Trump 2.0, what we're seeing is a different approach, slightly different approach, where the institutions are not being respected as they previously were, and so under executive order, right, he's going to say it doesn't matter that the Senate and House are no longer Republican majority. I am giving myself the power to make executive decisions.
He can't when it comes to budgeting, because Congress
if
holds
it goes
the
up to the Supreme Court, they could very well side with him.
Listen, and in foundationally, there's a constitution. If it's black, like if he's,
it's being tested right now.
Yes,
I think he's being smart in that he's not waiting for the Senate and the House to flip.
Yes, that I agree. He's doing everything right away.
He's taking actions now.
Correct. Yes.
And he wants it to go up to the Supreme Court. If anyone's going to challenge it, let them do it now, so he knows exactly how much leeway he's going to have.
Yeah. So it's look, fundamentally.
Hey guys, we haven't heard much from Dominic. I'd love to get his perspective.
Look, I'm a big U.S. fan. I think
we didn't know that about you, Dominic.
Well, I mean,
excuse me, but
I think in the there you go. So in the end, I mean, I think there's a lot of checks and balances in the U.S. We've seen them lately, the last couple of weeks. So I'm not worried. Yeah, the tariffs, the way he's going about it, I understand why he's doing it. But it's the way he's going about it that it's all right. But in the end, I think it's going to work out for America. It won't be that bad for us.
So I'm flabbergasted. You say that we've seen evidence of the checks and balances at work. I think if anything, we've actually seen many of the historical checks and balances completely ignored.
Well, actually, just to put Dominic's point, there's a very concrete example. Just now, the Supreme Court actually ruled against him and ordered him to release those funds that were already committed through U.S.A. And the deciding vote was arch-conservative, his appointee. I forget the woman justice.
Amy Coney Barrett.
Thank you. That's
there you go.
There you go. So there's one example.
Exactly.
That's one.
Yeah.
That's one.
Yeah, but that's what I meant about the Constitution. I mean, in the end, when he's blatantly against the Constitution of the country, I mean, people are going to stand up at a certain point. I also have faith in that.
Yeah.
Because it's treasonous otherwise. And it literally treasonous otherwise. And certain people at a certain point are going to say, fuck this Republican Democrat shit.
Okay, I'm going to give you an example. So he has given himself the authority to fire people who historically have been appointed by members of Congress. And the president was arm's length. The president had no say, no involvement in terms of who the people were that should be appointed, whether they should be dismissed before completing their term. And these are positions that were, regardless of what the ideology of the individuals was, that they were arm's length and totally independent.
Yeah, it's his Justice Department. Yes, it's his Justice Department now.
But it goes beyond that. So if you look at all the appointments that he's made, if you look at all the people who have been dismissed, relieved of their responsibilities, he's ensuring that there's a loyalty factor there.
Yes, everyone has to be loyal to him.
That is going to allow him to drive the execution of whatever decisions he makes.
Yeah, but Pat,
across government.
Pat, we don't know what's going to happen in the future, right? We don't know whether people are going to stand up to some blatant anti-constitutional, action that he takes or not. So let's just, to Dominic's point, and I kind of agree with him, I think people will stand up at the right time when it's blatantly anti-constitutional. If he wants to start putting innocent people into jails, there's going to be things that people will say enough, and there's going to be... The one thing about the U.S. is people will protest, okay? And half the country did not vote for him Okay.
You know, there are other countries that you could have made these statements about previously, until an autocratic regime was put in place, and suddenly people saw their rights and freedoms taken away.
It was in the U.S.
I agree that history gives us lessons that need to be looked at. So I agree with that comment 100%, but I also have faith in the American people that there are enough intelligent, strong-willed people who will do the right things.
Well, I think
that
I
faith.
think there's a method to the madness, right? And,
I agree with.
And so
Definitely.
I think there's a tendency for too many
He's
people
trying.
to dismiss Trump.
No.
Right? He's a buffoon. He's this. He's that.
He's a smart motherfucker.
He's a lot smarter and more clever than most people give him credit for.
Yes, 100%.
So you know, alienating nations that were previously allies
Yeah.
helps him convince the American population that these people don't care about us. These people,
He wants to
he's
create
turning
conflict.
it on his head. He wants to be able to tell the American people,
I'm your savior.
Right.
Yeah.
It's America first. It's all about us. Look,
Everyone's trying to screw
these
us.
other nations are all trying to screw us, take advantage
and they've been
of us.
screwing us for years.
Right.
Look at all these trade imbalances.
But don't worry. Don't worry.
Let's not get started about
And
trade
it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Correct.
Yes. And
Correct.
he says he repeats himself.
So this whole
constantly.
friend or foe question, as much as I believe that a growing number of former allies would today say America has gone from being a friend to being a foe. And we don't know where it ends. We're not quite sure how far this is going to get. But certainly the wheels are in motion, which at the same time gives him the ability to use the same argument with respect to these foreign countries.
I don't think they've become a foe. Just a guarded friend.
What do you mean?
The American?
Yeah.
A guarded friend.
Yeah.
Okay. A guarded friend.
Well, for
No,
Canada
I think for reasons of self-preservation,
for Greenland, for Canada, for Panama.
you're seeing a lot of countries, whether it's the UK or others, who are taking that position. Oh no, we're close allies. You know, we're going to work with them.
Yeah, they're kissing the ring.
Look at poor Ukraine, and I say poor Ukraine.
Yeah.
You know, being embarrassed and dressed down the way the president was.
Yeah.
Only
What was
within a
that?
matter of days to have to return with his tail between his legs,
Yeah.
apologizing for something that was not of his own making. I'm not saying that he was without any fault, but you know, when you're in a position where you're largely dependent
Yeah, and your people are dying.
on the goodwill, exactly.
That's your front
He has
line.
to save his people.
Yeah, he doesn't give a shit. I mean, yeah, he'll kiss
Oh,
his
he gives a
ass.
shit, but he has his priority is to save his people.
Yeah, exactly.
This is a Republican president. Guys,
right.
this is a Republican president for the first time in their history that is kowtowing to a totalitarian Russia.
Yeah, but Aki, at a certain point, so what I like to do is I like to separate the individual from the actions. You can love or hate the guy. I don't give a shit. He is who he is. You know, it's not going to change.
Which one are we referring to?
We're talking about Trump.
Okay, I think you could have been talking about Putin.
Yeah.
I love that guy.
There you go.
Anyway, so I take that back. So because what ends up happening is the message gets diluted when you start attacking the individual. Okay. So that's why, let's leave the I hate Donald Trump or that guy's an asshole or what. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Even his motivation. Yes, he wants to enrich himself and his family. Yes, but let's put all that shit aside. At this point, it's all about...
It's a load of shit.
No, but it's all about his policies. Right now, I just want to look at the policies and the results of those policies and what that means for the different nations around him.
So let me tell you what, let me go into that. So number one, economically, as I said, my earlier point, the point that I'm making, and you're right, it's not something that's going to happen like next year in 2 years. But if they insist on that, and Americans choose to go in that direction to be island USA and the rest of the world,
they won't.
Okay, but if they do, because this is his whole platform. This is what he got elected on. This is what we're talking about. But all I'm saying is,
I'll indulge you. I'm sorry.
His base, as Pat was pointing out, his base, and this is the base that he has. This is what America first. I want all the manufacturing. I want it all. In my town.
Let me just throw one counterpoint at you. His base right now, when the egg prices that he said were going to come down are doubling, when car prices are going up by $10,000, $15,000, $20,000
but
for
it's
a
Biden's
truck.
fault.
Hang on. for now, 6 months from now, it's no longer going to be Biden's fault. Okay. At a certain point, when economic rubber hits the road, people are going to realize that this was all bullshit and we don't want this anymore. When people can't afford shit anymore, because everything he's doing is inflationary. We know that. It doesn't. Anyone with a brain in their heads knows that what he's doing is inflationary. And when that inflation starts hitting harder month after month, people are going to stop supporting him. That's when people are going to go to the streets.
No, and what happens if, and I think more appropriately, when he lowers taxes
Exactly.
to counter some of those inflationary pressures?
Pat, when someone is earning $60,000 a year and his taxes go from 30% to 25%, he's not saving a lot of money. It's not like he's going to have a lot of money to spend on other stuff. So his lowering of taxes is going to do nothing for the average American. For all the rich guys, they're going to love him. They're going to give more money to him. His campaign finances are going to be topped up like to $1 trillion, for God's sake, if he does that. But the people who are going to be protesting are not going to be those rich people. They're going to be the average $60, $70, $80, $90,000 a year earning Americans who are not going to give a shit that they have 5% or 10% less tax to pay when everything is costing 30, 40, 50% more.
Yeah, I think there are some Americans who
Some rich Americans.
No. Let me finish. I think some Americans will fall into what you just described.
Yeah.
I think that there are people who are essentially going to continue to see him as the Messiah. And he's telling us that this is good for us. He's telling us that, we need to endure some short to midterm pain in order to benefit longer term.
Yeah, stupid people will still exist.
And he's delivering on certain fronts.
Yes, stupid people will still exist.
It's not just stupid.
Gullible, stupid people who don't understand economics.
77 million people voted for him.
Yeah, but 20 million of those people are the idiots. Not 70 million.
His objective, from what I understand, is to eliminate taxes on $150,000 of income. So that's why the tariffs, he wants to use tariff money.
Let him do it. Let's see what happens to his economy.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Let's see what happens to his economy. Guys, when a new car costs $15,000 more, how much do you have to save in taxes to make up that difference of one new car?
It's going to cost $15,000 more maybe for the first 2 years. But then if the production comes to the States,
it's going to cost even more because the hourly pay that you're going to have to pay the guy to work in a U.S. thing when you have unemployment of 4% and you're not bringing people into your country because you don't want to bring in immigration.
bring in technology.
I mean, okay, so if you have robots that do everything and now AI takes all over all the jobs, how much joblessness are you going to have?
Well, there's the balance. Yeah, I know.
Right? I mean,
I totally agree.
At a certain point, remember, we've already had talks about how if AI lives up to its capabilities and there are job losses, that we're going to have to look at things like universal basic income and stuff like that.
We will.
You think now, from a Trump perspective, universal basic income is going to happen? Right? So there's a huge transition that's going to happen over the next 5, 10, 15 years that we're going to be part of. Hopefully, we live long enough, knock on wood. We are retired old men after all. Okay.
Hear, hear.
But this stuff, I mean, what's happening now is over the next 2 years, maybe 4 years. After that, we're going to see backlashes happening, in my opinion, over the next 3 to 6 months. We're going to see huge backlashes happening. And if the economy goes the way I think it's going to go, in the next 6 to 12 months, shit's going to hit the fan in the U.S.
Remains to be seen.
That's my prediction.
No, I think how a strong man reacts to backlash is different from what we're accustomed to.
Yeah.
In America.
In the past, he gave a shit about the stock market. At this point, he no longer does, which is interesting. So that is something to keep an eye on. I like your point.
And the tariffs
but I wonder what he's going to do.
The tariffs are not in effect yet, so.
Exactly. Imagine once they get into effect.
What time of day is it?
Yeah, I know.
It may have changed.
Well, actually, I think the 25% started.
But then it changes from day to day.
Yeah, exactly.
Look, even Rob Ford, changes his mind.
Premier of Ontario.
Yeah, exactly.
So you play stuff, and then.
But, yeah.
Well, I think part of it is there's so much posturing going on.
Yeah, exactly.
But when you're confronted by a bully who's much bigger, much stronger, more powerful than you are,
kick him in the nuts.
What are you going to do?
Well, I did it all my life when I was a kid. you fight back because a black card.
At some point, you have to recognize when you can't win a fight.
Yeah, but sometimes,
I think
Sometimes you don't give a shit.
No, this is the position Ukraine has been placed in.
Correct.
Yeah. And they don't give a shit. They just have to go.
When you can't win a fight, what do you do?
Well, look at Ukraine. With the 4 years of Biden, there was no talks. At least now there's talks.
But there was
Talks between who and who?
Well, it's a start.
No, but what is the start, Dominic?
Well, the start is...
To tell someone, listen, this is how it's going to go down.
might as well have talks with Hamas. too.
Whatever territory your oppressor has taken is now theirs.
In Europe.
You don't have. That's a start. You don't have a word to say because, in truth, I think that in Trump's mind, and I mean, it's a tough place to go and try and imagine what goes on, but in Trump's mind, I have to believe that he would be okay with the world being divided into three superpowers,
3 blocks. Yeah.
Yeah.
3 blocks,
Yeah.
where America has the largest and most powerful economically and militarily speaking bloc.
Yeah. He has all of North and South America.
And then you have the
Russia
rest
has all of
Russia.
Europe. And China has all of Asia.
Essentially, it is like that now.
There you go.
It's not.
It's not.
It's not.
Not far.
I love the comment made recently by Trump about, somebody a few hundred years ago arbitrarily drew
Right.
this line and called it the border. It's like, hello. What he's failing to mention is that's true of every country in the world.
Thank you.
The world map doesn't have borders on it.
That's trolling.
It's all man-made.
That's
It's not just trolling. There are people who actually go, yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Right?
And the earth is flat, so.
But you know what? I'm wondering.
Every system we have, every structure we've put in place is man-made. Everything about this world.
Yeah.
Unless you're describing nature, it's all man-made.
yeah.
And even half of nature has been gene spliced by us. So.
Yeah. At the end of the day, I think he's a performer, and he's putting on a show, and he's showing his base. Well, this is what I said I was going to do. I'm doing it. I'm being true to my word. I'm going to make sure that we are the strongest.
So I disagree with you.
You disagree with what? That he's
He does not give a shit about being elected again. So he doesn't care about his base anymore. Right now,
I think he's a megalomaniac. Don't you agree?
no, but right now what he's doing
The
is
applause lines are so
Hang on.
important to him.
Right now he's doing whatever the fuck he wants. He's enriching himself and his family with the cryptocurrency crap that him and Melania and everyone else is coming up with. He's got billions.
And Elon
billions.
has one too now, right?
Elon was early with the Bitcoin and stuff. Anyway, and the Doge. He started with the Doge.
Right, that's what I'm
with
saying,
the
yeah.
Shibu
Right.
Inu or
Right.
whatever the hell it was. Anyway, right now Trump doesn't give a shit about being reelected. He learned from last time that he's not going to wait for Congress to disappear and for his Congress and Senate and the Supreme Court, that he's got everything aligned right now. He's just doing everything he can right now. He doesn't care that the markets are going down. Before he did. He doesn't even give a shit about that anymore. Right now, he wants to be the president that grew the U.S. Either grew the U.S. by acquiring Greenland and Panama or Canada, or he just wants crazy big ass shit to happen with him being there so he can be on Mount Rushmore and have a legacy, because he's going to die in a few years anyway, because he's an old man, and right now he wants to get his legacy in place. That's what I think.
You don't think he wants to be reelected? Because all he's got to do say that
The man is 79.
Wait a second. The Biden election was a fraud, and he can get a second term.
So maybe you don't put it to an election.
Listen, guys, we're going into hyperbole
Maybe there is
here.
no free and open election.
Maybe.
Let's put the crazy stuff
Yeah,
aside
it's
for
crazy.
a second. He's not
Exactly.
going to live forever.
No, by executive order. By executive order,
Yeah, but Pat, he's not gonna-
we are at risk as a country, as a nation.
Yeah, but
we cannot hold elections. I must stay in power.
But that's
To defend your interests.
That's what Duran said. We'll kick in. People, yeah. that's
People
it.
will freak the fuck out.
Exactly.
Look,
We'll see. We'll see.
Exactly.
But look, January 6th just rolled off the guy's back.
No,
January
it didn't,
6th
it didn't roll off
It
his
didn't
back.
roll off
It
his
did
back.
not roll
Well,
off his back.
Americans didn't bat an eyelid. Forgotten.
He never said to go attack.
Hang on. So
Oh, whoa,
that's
whoa,
a little bit too
whoa,
far.
whoa, Dominic, Dominic.
Whoa,
Dominic.
Okay. Whoa.
He
was
is
the
on the
president of
right-hand
United
side of the
States.
screen.
He lit the fire. He's the president of the
Well,
United
he said
States.
to go attack and to. He didn't.
Okay, Dominic, did those people commit a crime?
Yes.
Yeah.
Did he pardon them?
I disagree with what he did.
Oh, no, but what? What?
So
Clearly, his position is those people did nothing wrong. They're patriots.
They did.
Right?
They're my
if
people.
If they had done that in the name of a
My blessing.
Democrat,
We're talking
if they had
about-
done that in the name of a Democrat, all hell would have broken loose.
Civil War.
I think we went down a rat hole on this one.
No, but I mean,
Rabbit
this is to your
hole.
point earlier, guys, that you have this confidence in the American people that they cannot be pushed, like they will defend their democracy. January 6th changed that. That was a watershed for me. If you can accept that, certifying the vote and ransacking the Capitol during the certification of the vote.
Okay.
And it's a footnote.
So here,
it's a footnote now.
So
Let
guys,
bygones
I want
be
to come back.
bygones.
I want to bring the conversation back to friend or foe.
Yes.
So I think the recipe is quite simple. If you're loyal to Trump, if you cater to his demands, if you do what he asks of you, then you can consider yourself a friend.
Yes.
And you can convince yourself.
Sorry, you
and you
forgot
can
one.
convince yourself
forgot
that
one.
America is my friend.
Yeah, but you forgot one. If you give him $300 million for his campaign, you can
Oh, it's
also
well,
be his
it's
friend.
well beyond that. I understand, and you know, I don't have the source to share with you in the audience, but I understand that in exchange for him having committed to purchasing a Tesla, an additional $100 million.
That's right. Yeah,
has
you
been
just said that.
donated.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The
So-
pro-Tesla
Yeah.
publicity stunt.
Yeah, beautiful. Like it's going to help because, by the way, most of the Trump followers hate electric cars.
Exactly.
So that's a little bit of a interesting thing where he doesn't even give a shit. That's why I said
It's okay. They're going to
he
start
doesn't-
manufacturing armored vehicles. It's good. It's all good.
Yeah,
You see,
yeah.
this is
SpaceX is
this is
gonna
why
take over from NASA.
This is why I'm so concerned about your views that American people know better and will stand up for
They
the
will.
democracy.
They will.
They
I
will.
trust the American people.
They are the first sign of a democracy crumbling is when the people in charge are surrounded by enablers and yes people, and nobody pushes back. And right now, that's what you have. He's purging the Department of Justice.
Yes,
So it's no longer the independent Department of Justice anymore.
Yeah,
it's his Department of Justice. And the institutions of the American government, he is basically
Raping them.
bringing them, under his wing.
You can grab them by the pussy. They'll let you.
So those are serious attacks on the pillars of their democracy.
And still, Americans will come out of it because they will protest.
I'm
and they
not
will
so
get
sure.
things
So
done.
I will say this, right? Many Americans today, I don't know what percentage of the population, but many continue to be religious zealots.
Yes.
What he's selling is a form of religion.
Yes.
Okay. We'll see how it turns out.
There's 400 million of them.
We'll see how it turns out.
Some of them will figure it out.
We'll see.
I totally agree.
We'll see.
Okay, so
All right, guys. So final word.
final word. I think in the next 6 to 9 months tops, Americans are going to realize this tariff shit and this being a foe to the rest of the world, not a friend to our topic, is going to result in a lot of inflation, and there's going to be a backlash. And how he handles that backlash will be interesting. If he doubles down or not, we'll see. But it's going to be really interesting because I think inflation is going to go apeshit in the U.S. over the next 6 to 9 months if he doesn't stop this tariff shit.
Oh, totally agree. I mean, the inflation will not just in the U.S., everywhere.
Globally.
Yeah. But I think in the end, it's going to work out for the U.S., for everybody else. He's just playing right now. He's trolling everybody. And I think in the end, it's going to work out.
If the president of the United States of America, the country that accounts for 4% of the world's population and 25% of the world's GDP, can be this reckless and this belligerent, all bets are off on what other leaders can do in the world of today.
So I think this is a valuable lesson, painful, but valuable lesson for Western democracies that have been far too reliant and dependent on America for their own prosperity. If they don't get their shit together, if they don't come to the realization that having a strong economy is their route to survival in the future, if they don't put aside some of their heavily left-leaning socialist beliefs for the sake of ensuring they have a robust, sustainable economy, then all bets are off.
Can you give us an example?
Sure. I'll start. No, I won't even start with Europe. I'll start with Canada.
There you go. Thank you.
A country as resource rich as Canada
Yeah.
that has been riding the coattails of America for eons.
Because they won't build a fucking
Needs
pipeline.
to get its shit together, tear down interprovincial trade barriers,
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
and put the country to work to ensure its own prosperity and viability.
Thank you, Pat.
Okay, so
Thank you.
If I may,
Okay.
if I may,
Thank you.
last word.
You hit it right out of the park.
Absolutely, we can do better as a country. I'm talking about Canada, but as most successful societies do, we were dealt this geographic card. We played it to the hilt. Not enough, but we have to.
What do
We
you
have
mean?
to do
What-
better.
what- expand on that. What do you mean
Build
play
a
it to the
fucking
hill?
pipeline.
We build it. Well, look where. Never mind. I mean, look where we're located. This is the geographic card that we've been dealt. We are in North America. We are our biggest. Our neighbor is the biggest economy in the world.
Yeah,
of
we
course, it
have-
made good business sense for us, to build up markets with our neighbor and build up free trade relationships with our neighbor. That was good economic policy. Now it's
Who's
not
arguing?
enough.
No one's arguing with
No,
you.
now it's not enough.
We never took advantage of our natural resources to develop world-class industries and businesses within Canada. We can count them on one hand, for goodness
We
sake.
have. There's
Exactly.
work to be done. There's work to be done.
There's an awful lot of work
But
that
I don't
should
want.
have been done.
I don't want to hear. I don't buy this.
Hallelujah.
I don't want to buy this argument that we got a free ride. We didn't get a free ride.
Oh, yeah, we did.
we did not get a free ride.
Big
It was
time.
beneficial. It was beneficial, and that's why you have we started off with the auto pact that evolved into free trade. Anyway, it's always evolving, but we must do better. Absolutely. So right now, if what could happen is we'll have a Trump U.S.A. island of Trump U.S.A. And if you have, the rest of the capitalist and free world that actually get their act together, they build new free trade blocks, and we're a part of that, and Europe and Asia, Japan. If we were able to do that, then I bet on not on them and against the Trump U.S.A. island.
Okay, on that note, let's have him have the last word.
I'm not buying that lottery ticket.
Yeah. Okay. Good conversation as usual. Hard to get agreement around the table. We should take this opportunity to thank our viewers for joining us.
Yes.
Send us your suggestions.
Like and subscribe, motherfuckers.
Hey, be kind. Be kind. Don't be a bully.
I'm not a bully.
Well, you're acting like one. Anyway, we appreciate
Okay.
you joining us. Please subscribe. We would greatly appreciate it. We look forward to joining you and having you join us again next week.
Yes.
Have a good one, everyone. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.